I am about to introduce to you Hazel Gaynor. Oh my God, when she said that she was going to talk to me about the lighthouse keeper's daughter, which is right here, I literally screamed because I love her so much and I'm so happy that she found time to talk with me. You are going to love this interview. So everybody, here is Hazel. Hi everyone, I am so excited because I am speaking again with Hazel Gaynor, author Hazel Gaynor, and I can't believe that I get to talk to her the day after this book release because you can see in the background, it's the lighthouse keeper's daughter, and there it is. I love that cover too. I love both of them. But I've been looking forward to this book. I mean, we've been seeing it on Instagram and it was like, yes, it's finally here and everybody's so excited. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for inviting me back. And yeah, absolutely. It's such a joy to be finally at release date. This is the UK and Ireland edition, which was released about a month ago. So it's felt like a long time for my readers in the States and in Canada to have the book. And it was such an exciting day yesterday. There was just lovely warmth from readers and people having their pre-ordered books delivered. Yeah, really exciting.
You know, I was just talking to an author recently, I don't even remember which one, and she said that she felt bad for authors back before like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram because release day, she's like, I don't even know what that would have looked like except for if you were at
actually,
a
that's
bookstore.
a really good point. Yeah, because especially with me being here in Ireland and, I'd love to be over in the States, but obviously it's not always possible to time the release date with being in the country. So it's fantastic. You get that. You get a sense of the reaction, even though you're not there.
Yeah.
So it must have been very, very different, I think. Even 5-10 years ago.
Right.
It's not that long ago.
Yeah, right. Not that long ago. And now you get that instant, like when you wake up in the morning and your inbox is filled with people, like all the love you get.
I'm still catching up. I woke up this morning and my husband was laughing. He said, "You're not still." I said, "Yeah, I'm still catching up." It's so lovely. Yeah.
Oh, it's awesome. So this book, like everybody's looking forward to it, and it did not disappoint, Hazel. I mean, I don't know how you keep doing it because The Cottingley Secret and then The Last Christmas in Paris. I mean, it's been a lot in a row, and now this one, and I'm like, she is one busy writer. Okay.
That's it. Yeah, no quiet hours in the day. It took me a while to get published originally, and then I often say to people when I did, it's all happened in a hurry, which is fabulous because I'm blessed. I have lots of ideas and I have lots of stories I'm really eager to tell, and it's really exciting for me to be able to deliver a new book to readers who might have just read one of my earlier books, and then there's this lovely backlist now for people to go and explore. So I'm busy working on new books, but there's plenty, hopefully, to keep people busy if they're only just discovering me. And, you hope that you reach lots more new readers with each book. It's been a real whirlwind, the last year in particular, because I had the book out with Heather, Last Christmas in Paris. So there was a co-written book in between my solo projects.
Right, and I did interview her on that book. When it came out, I was just like blown away. But historical fiction, I feel like it's so different than like women, whatever you want to call that, women's fiction or just literature, because you have to find like a story and then the research that goes into the, to making sure that it's accurate, and it's a lot of. And then you still have to write it. Like, it seems like it's so much work involved, and to keep it accurate, because those readers out there who are going to be like, no, that didn't.
Oh yeah. And this is the thing, because as you've just said, so I'm writing a book. Most of my books take about 2 years to write, but there's only a year between publication dates.
Wow.
So I'm inhabiting a different event, era, historical person every couple of years, whereas some people would be a lifelong expert in that particular thing. So, I always do hold my hands up and say I do really take my research very seriously, and I love doing it. But I absolutely know there are people who are way more expert in, for example, the Great War that we wrote about in Last Christmas in Paris, or the Titanic, which was my first book, The Girl Who Came Home. But I have to balance that historical fact with what I'm doing is hopefully telling a really great story, and I have to always be mindful of that I have my foundation of research, but I have to know when to stop with that and allow myself to develop these relatable characters that people will fall in love with and be sad for and go on that journey with. So yeah, the research is fascinating, and with the Lighthouse Keeper's Daughter particularly took me to some very interesting places.
Oh my goodness. And you're now that, like, I look at you as the not the newcomer. Like, now you are the person that newcomers look up to for historical fiction. And we all know when we open one of your books that it's gonna blow us away. It's gonna be amazing, and it's gonna be a ride, and there's gonna be tears, and there's gonna be this book was so, I think it's the most emotional one that I've read of yours. My opinion. I don't know if everybody agrees with me, but I felt so emotionally invested in these characters. Are you hearing that from anyone?
A lot, yeah, and it's so great to hear, and no pressure that other people are looking up to me now. I can't hide behind being the new girl anymore.
Yeah.
But that's lovely in itself, and very flattering if that's the case. But yeah, I've had a lot of reaction from readers who seem to have felt really connected to these characters. Essentially, in The Lighthouse Keeper's Daughter, there are 4 women. So the main character, I suppose, who started the story is Grace Darling. She's the real person from history, this lighthouse keeper's daughter who became very famous in England when she and her father saved survivors of a shipwreck near their lighthouse home. And Grace's story really led me to discover this incredible history of female lighthouse keepers, particularly in the United States, but also around other places. So I have these 4 women who all have their own struggles and all go on their own journey, but are all connected in one way or another. And yes, there are moments of great tragedy. Grace's story in itself is a very tragic story, but also I think she's somebody who had great strength, great dignity. So yeah, it's a very emotional read. There's this backdrop of storms. There's an awful lot of dramatic moments. There's a love story weaved in. It's a story about mothers and daughters. So there is an awful lot for people to connect to, and people are finding their own favourite female character in there as well, which is always lovely, because the book is for you now. I did my job. Now I sort of hand it to the reader, and you take from it what each person finds.
When you're looking for a story like this, because I keep thinking that as I'm reading it, like, how did Hazel find Grace Darling? Like, did you always know about her, or did you do research and then just like stumble upon her?
Yeah, she's fascinating. I have a book here. This is Grace. I don't know if you can. So this is a painting. And interestingly, look, Jessica Mitford, so one of the Mitford sisters,
Yes.
Nancy Mitford's sister, became obsessed with Grace Darling, and she wrote this incredible book about her. So this is one depiction of Grace rowing out in the storm in a small rowing boat to rescue these survivors. And I learnt about her in a history lesson at school when I was a young girl. And I just was fascinated by this. She was in these huge, voluminous Victorian skirts, and a Victorian woman wasn't expected to show such strength or bravery. So she's been with me a long time, and I've always found her story really fascinating. Lighthouses, I find just incredibly romantic and mysterious. So I was always, I suppose, interested in her, and now as a novelist, you're always sort of picking back over those distant memories for ideas. And I started to read about her, and I found this, I don't know if you can see this tiny, tiny little book.
Uh-huh.
This is an antique book I found in a second-hand bookshop in England, and it was written in 1874, and it's a fictional account of Grace Darling's heroic rescue. And it was really finding this little book that, again, sparked my love of Grace, and reminded me I don't know if you can see that little.
Oh, I can. That's awesome.
And this is another portrait painted of Grace, and that particular portrait is one I refer to in the book. I imagine the story of the artist who travels to the lighthouse to paint her portrait. So yeah, sort of something I've always known about, a woman I've really felt should be still known about. She seems to have become a bit lost in history, and I feel now as much as ever, this is the time for women's voices to be heard. And I'm so thrilled that people are starting to talk about Grace again, and all the female lighthouse keepers, as I say, who I found as well. Ida Lewis being one, from Newport, Rhode Island, who was known as America's Grace Darling. And Ida Lewis brought me to Newport, Rhode Island, and hence the two strands of the book.
Wow. I know. I think that what I love about historical fiction and authors like you is when you find these strong women that were back in the 17th and 18th and, centuries, and just for girls to know, like, they were there.
Yeah.
Even though if history didn't write about them as much, it's like they were there and they existed. So we are not really paving a new way. We're kind of acknowledging them and what they brought to history.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think, some of these women like Grace have sort of been forgotten about or written out of the history books. And, they have incredible stories to tell. And I think they're great role models, for young girls now that, Grace was only 22 when she took out in the rowing boat, and her entire life changed. She became famous throughout England from having a very private life to this incredibly public life. And she handled that incredibly with dignity, as I say, but it did have an effect on her. And I think these are incredible stories to know, that, heroines aren't just modern people, there are this legacy, of women who were doing amazing things and gave women at the time the self-belief to go and also do incredible things. And it's also that generational connection that I weave into the book between the four women as well. So yeah, I hope people will really enjoy it. I hope it's quite an empowering read.
Oh, it really
in that
is.
sense.
Yeah, and nobody does timelines like you do. Okay, I mean, because I become so attached to one timeline, but I did get myself attached to Matilda. I loved her story because of the. I don't want to give anything away. So, I mean, can we?
I know it's difficult.
Because of her story and just that how women were treated at that time, to be ashamed of a situation, whatever situation they got themselves into, and the fact that she was strong enough to get, I don't know, I love that part of it. I really did. And plus I love the 30s. And I always like envision my grandmothers and, like during that, because it's almost like relatable, because I can at least picture like they were both alive during the 1930s. So I try to envision like what they went through. So I did find myself like, and the ending is just, it's perfect. I'll just say that.
And these women, particularly, it's recent history really. So the 1930s, and, here we have this young Irish girl who does get herself into a difficult situation. And as you absolutely said there, she was supposed to feel ashamed. She had to be sent away from her home, hidden her secret, hidden away. And, what resilience and strength to be able to fight against that.
Yes.
And say, well, this is what society expects me to do, but I'm going to do something else. And, her story, again, a young woman, even though her and Grace are 100 years apart, I felt it was really important to contrast those two different periods of history where they each had an expectation of them, but they each pushed against that.
Right.
And it's not that long ago, and things have changed dramatically. So it's really interesting, I think, to step into those women's shoes who were our great grandmothers, and the decisions and choices they made, and the repercussions of that, I think, are really, really interesting. So I'm pleased that you enjoyed Matilda, my lovely little Irish girl.
Yeah. Yep, I'm going to tell you my favorite line, and I always look for this line, and it seems to always stick that it works out to be perfect, because I'll read the book and then I go back and read the beginning. And again, like with fresh, because now that I know the story, I want to see where you started me, even though I read it in a day. It doesn't even matter. I think that by the time you get to the end of the book, you're like, where did that start off with? You can't even remember, So I go back and I read that beginning. And so the last line for me when I'm done reading this, and I thought it wrapped your book up so perfectly. And you say, however, well, I might hide it. The truth is, I am terrified. And what it did for me is it made me realize like how many times in my life I have been terrified. Okay? But because everybody can relate to that, and it's like, but we still go on, and it's the
Yeah,
next step, and I'm
yeah,
getting teared up. Look at this, like
yeah.
emotional in the morning, like because when I read it this morning, because I did that this morning, and I was like, I'm 50, I'm gonna be 54 this week, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I could have written that in my 20s. I could have written
Yeah,
that in my 30, like, but
yeah.
it's what you do, and it's what she did, and it like, so I just had to tell you
That's
like how
so lovely. I'm
emotionally attached.
so thrilled you connected with that, and you don't look as if you're going to be 54. Might I just say, you're fantastic.
The
But
camera's wonderful.
but is that, we do all, and the book is actually dedicated to courageous women, because we're all hiding something. Every single one of us, we project the best of ourselves, but there is always a lot going on behind the door, and I think we also always have to be mindful of that. When we meet people and interact with them, we have no idea
Right.
what fears they're bringing with them or what's happening in their life. And it's really interesting. I love that you picked that line because that it really does, as you say, it could be anybody at any age or stage in their life, but it's how we choose to deal with that fear.
Yes.
And that, it doesn't have to be this enormous act of bravery. It can be
Right.
a really quite what might seem to be a small thing that overcomes that fear, but is a huge thing
Yeah.
to the person experiencing. So that's really lovely that you picked that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I love that. So, okay, before I let you go, is there anything you can tell us about next? Because, like you said, you're always like a couple years ahead. So,
Yeah, actually, I have something here. Let me just grab it. This is next. Right there.
no. Oh my God, she is my like all-time favorite. I can't believe it.
This is
I.
gorgeous. This is an amazing coffee table book
Oh my
I was
gosh.
given recently. I'm working the next book. There's two things. So quite quickly. So Heather Webb and I, who wrote Last Christmas in Paris,
Love her.
we are collaborating on a book again, which is called Meet Me in Monaco, and it is all inspired by Grace Kelly's wedding to Prince Rainier of Monaco. Yeah, so we're very excited.
Oh my
Very
God.
excited.
I'm so excited. Like, when is this? When is this happening? I need to put it on my calendar.
July 2019, so next
Okay.
summer.
Okay.
Um, so we're very excited to work together again and to be in this world of Grace Kelly.
Oh my
And
God.
absolutely what a woman.
Oh,
It's just an incredible story. So we're
yes.
thrilled to be writing that together. And then I'm also early stages of working on a new Hazel Gaynor on my own historical novel. I can't say too much yet, but I will say that it's taking me into a new historical era, into a new location, and I am very, very excited about it. And I hope to be able to share more soon. So
Okay,
that's all
well,
I can
if
say
there
for
was
now.
any reason for me to love you and Heather more, okay, that one is it. So I cannot wait. That is so
Thank
exciting.
you.
That just made my whole day. I'll just walk around
Great,
like.
great. Yeah, no, we're so thrilled. It's a joy to be working together again. We had such fun last
Yes.
time, and it's lovely to have the balance of working on our own projects because Heather's writing her own book as
Yes.
well, and then we come together and write this together. So it works really well. Yeah,
Yeah, and it gives me a whole new excuse to go watch all her movies again. So.
absolutely.
That's
It's
the
a good
exciting
time.
part. Right, exactly. Okay, so everyone, all of Hazel's links are going to be listed below, and she is giving away a copy tonight on Instagram, and I will have that link listed below. And you know what? Your covers, I just have to say, like the Cottingley Secret and this one,
Yeah.
I love that it's like you now, those muted like
Yeah.
colors, and
Yeah, they're fabulous. I'm so blessed with my team at Collins, the talent of designers who do this. I don't know how.
yeah. They're like
Fabulous.
it's like a painting itself. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah,
It's
really. They are. They're pieces of art.
yes.
This is why I've got several of them on my wall around me.
Yeah, who needs artwork when you got your book covers, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's it. My own gallery.
That's right. Well, thank you so much, Hazel. Thank you for talking with me. I love you. I love your writing, and I cannot wait for the next one. And you have an amazing day.
Thank you. So brilliant to talk to you again. Take care.
Take care. Bye bye. If you made it to here, you watched all my interview with Hazel, and I told you were going to love her, right? You can't walk away from her not loving her. And her books are so incredibly good. And her next book is on Grace Kelly. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait. I'm already excited and I have to wait till next summer, but that's okay. And I'm so happy that she's collabing with Heather again. So, anyway, she is giving away a copy on my Instagram account. You can win it tonight. So, thank you everybody for watching.